right, team. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon from wherever you're joining. Please let us know in the comment section. And also, I am super excited because we have a very special guest today. It's none other than Soumyadeb Mitra, founder and CEO at RudderStack. I've been obviously following his journey since a while now. He's done such great things in the world of data engineering and can't wait to talk more to him today about the user data, about the customer user data in an economic downturn, and the data maturity journey, about data engineering in general, and a lot more. I am super excited for this session today. Also, feel free to ask questions because Soumyadeb has agreed to take on all the questions from the audience as well. So anything around data downtime or even the economic downturn, the data maturity journey, feel free to push in your questions in the comment section. Also, we have a very cool giveaway today that I wanted to let you guys know about. That is a RudderStack Swag Package, but this is a special one which has like Star Wars themed Luke, I'm your data t-shirt, and the t-shirts and the stickers as well that we are giving away. What you need to do is type in hashtag RudderStack. I am just opening up this for you. So as I mentioned, you need to type in hashtag RudderStack in the chat, and you will be running for a raffle, which I will be announcing towards the end of the show. It will have the RudderStack swag package, Star Wars themes. So go for it, guys. I also wanted to let you guys know a little about our guest today, Soumyadeb Mitra. He's the founder, as I said, and CEO of RudderStack. He started RudderStack in 2019 and recently raised a 56 million Series B round led by Insight Partners with support from previous investors, Kleiner Perkins and S28 Capital. RudderStack is Soumyadeb's third startup. He sold his previous startup, a B2B ad tech platform called Marinal IQ, to 8 by 8, where he then spent a year building customer data pipeline. So a lot that Soumyadev has done. So third startup, I'm sure you might have questions around startups as well. So don't hesitate to ask questions around that as well. We'll be definitely taking all the questions and a lot more about definitely data engineering, use how to how to use customer data in an economic downturn, and the data maturity journey. So don't hesitate. I can already see folks typing in RudderStack in the chat. So for those who are joining us, you can actually type in RudderStack to enter the raffle. Also, without any further ado, I know it's time for us to call Soumyadeb on stage here. So let's do that. Hey Soumyadeb, welcome to the Ravit Show. How are you?
Hey Ravit, I'm great. Thanks for having me here. Super excited to be talking to you today.
Awesome. It's such a pleasure. I know for a fact we've been obviously thinking to do this since a while, but finally we got a chance. We both are in a place where we can do that. Obviously, I'm super excited and I want to learn a lot about data engineering, about RudderStack. I know for a fact it's just like 2019, and after that pandemic hit, and still you've grown RudderStack to another level. You've recently also raised a 56 million Series B, which is amazing. Congratulations on that. And obviously, we would want to also learn today about more about using customer data in an economic downturn and the data maturity journey as well. But
Yeah.
how about starting with your introduction? I like I always say, or to all my guests, it's best to have the introduction from the guest itself. So yeah.
Yeah. So again, thanks for having me. I'll keep it short. I've been doing RudderStack, as you said, for the last 3 years. Started in 2019. This is my third startup. The previous one, it was an B2B ad tech platform, and built it for over 4 years. Then sold it to 8 by 8. Spent a year at 8 by 8 doing
Right.
similar stuff around customer data, and all the kind of pains I had to go through was the
Mhm.
reason for starting RudderStack. Before that, I started my career in a company called Data Domain. That was pretty much the only company I worked at. The company was like the famous thing about that company was it was Frank Slootman's first company as a CEO. And Frank, as some of you probably know, is the CEO of Snowflake. So he had a tremendous run as like CEOs of companies, taking companies public. So I learned a lot working with Frank around how to scale startups, how to bring that customer mentality, and so on. So yeah, that was my first job, and I have a PhD in data. So I mostly worked in data, but data applied to customer data and so on lately in the last like 7-8 years. So that's kind of my quick background.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Though I know for a fact that you've done so much in this space, and everything comes with experience. So thanks for that explanation, and thanks for those detailed, your journey about what how you obviously build this. Also, I know for a fact where with RudderStack you're doing a lot in the data engineering space. You are helping a lot of data engineers out there, a lot of teams. You have tons of best customers out there that I've seen for RudderStack. So also, I know for a fact where data engineering as a space is getting super hot right now. So can you tell us more about the current data engineering system and how it's looking from a CEO founder's perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, data engineering is a very, very broad space, right? I mean, I think I wouldn't say that we are solving all data engineering problems,
Mm-hmm.
but you look from a narrow lens of customer data, the the kind of problems that you run into are slightly different than, let's say, if you are working with like log data or IoT data or like some other data, right? So I think like from a pure customer data perspective, and let me like define that, right? So like if you take a consumer app, let's say like a app like Graphers or 1mg or something like that in India, and you have all these people, customers using those apps, you want to collect that data, right? I mean, things
Right.
people are doing in that app, the buttons they're clicking, the products they're searching, and so on. And this data is important for lots of reasons. Like you want to do analytics, you want to do like marketing based on that data, you want to do ML on that data, build recommendation systems, you want to build like churn models and so on. So there are like a whole lot of use cases of customer data, and the challenges of customer data are slightly different than, like as I said, like for some other data, right? So I think as I'm not say I'm like by any means an expert of complete data engineering space, but like yeah, I've been working in the broader customer data space for some time. And one thing I would say is like generally the number one use case historically has been marketing. Like I want to show promotions and so on. But more and more people are realizing that the value of customer data is well beyond marketing, right? It is for support, it is for customer experience and so on. I think, and that kind of requires a slightly different architecture. And that's where like traditionally marketing teams used to own customer data. Now data teams and data science teams are kind of focusing on customer data. So yeah, that's how I kind of think about this space.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting when you say, it's more about also focusing on the customer data, and it does make a lot of sense because most of the companies are doing that. Also, how I know for a fact you've been in this space since a while now. So how have things evolved over years? Like if you look at 2014 market, which is like almost, say, I would say 8 years back, it was completely different when having an application on mobile was also something which was very new to everyone in India or even abroad as well. So how do you see that evolution, and what has drastically come in and changed the game altogether? What was that sweet point, you would say?
Yeah, I think like a couple of things have changed, right? I mean, to your point, like I mean, yes, like 2014 was definitely early in India in terms of like mobile app usage and so on. US was slightly like it's probably 7-8 years ahead, but even
Yeah.
then, it was not as widespread as today, right? So your sources of customer data has definitely exploded, right? I mean, now like if a lot of activity happening on all these cross channels, right? That's kind of more on the requirement side. You have more sources of customer data. Now, what has changed on the infrastructure side is like in 2013-14, right? There was no Snowflake, there was no BigQuery, there was Redshift, which was costly, painful to scale, and so on. So, and processing data at scale required like serious data investments, right? I mean, there was data lakes like S3, but you could not query it with SQL, and you have to write your own custom things to do that. Or like pretty much like at any scale, you have to do like set up your own Hadoop cluster, set up Hive, like that entire ecosystem was painful, like processing and storing and processing data at scale. So that has changed today, right? I mean, you can literally like spin up a Snowflake cluster in 2 minutes, or like for that matter, BigQuery or Redshift, and store like terabytes of data and process, query them like in like when you can get up and running in like 15 minutes, right? So that has data infrastructure. The cloud data warehouses have definitely moved the needle. The other thing that say has changed is the advancement in ML. So like 10 years back, like firstly, it was not as democratized. Like very few people had knew how to build ML systems and train ML algorithms, and also like the kind of algorithms. There's like with the advancement of deep learning and things like that, like a lot of ML has become democratized, right? So that has the other thing. And today we don't do a lot of ML in a part of the platform, but like that's the vision, right? I think like we can truly democratize ML and like the kind of use cases you can build on customer data. So I think like these two things will likely change how customer data gets used, processed, and so on over the next like 5-10 years.
Yeah, I think these are fantastic insights that you're sharing, Soumyadeb. Also, we have a few comments from our audience here. Jasmine says she loves working with customer experience teams that leverage user data analysis. So thanks for that, Jasmine. Also, we have Manisha. She's saying these amazing insights. Also, she has a question for you around the data quality. And Manisha is asking, how do you solve data quality problems for your customer? That's an important one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think data quality, like firstly the problem is like if you have like all these sources of data, how do you ensure that like, yeah, I mean, your data is clean and it like conforms to some schema. Now data quality can be enforced at different stages of the data pipeline, right? I mean, if you again take the narrow example of customer data, and again narrow use case of collecting data from the apps, right? Let's say you have a mobile app come like Raffles, and you want to collect all that user activity data, right?
Right.
Now why does the data quality problem come in the first place, right? I mean, you're collecting all these events from the app, but then let's say you released a new version of the app, and some developer forgot to instrument an event or change some event name, or something else happened, right? Due to a software issue or like a human error and so on. So 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 that is like data quality at source. I mean, there are techniques like around how do you use like there are tools and techniques you can use to enforce schema at the point of these events being generated, right? So you can enforce quality at source. You can enforce quality at the data pipeline, right? I mean, so when data is flowing through RudderStack, you can ensure that all the events flowing through have conformed to some schema. If the event volume goes above or below some limit, then you know something went wrong, and then you can generate alerts so that like this is not and you can block those events and so on, right? So you can do quality check at the data pipeline level. And then there is data quality at rest, right? So after the data went to the data warehouse or wherever you are dumping it, then you can run whole kinds of checks around the again schema, around like volume and so on. And there are a bunch of tools which are kind of working more on the data quality at the rest approach. And I think like each has pros and cons, right? I mean, being at RudderStack, because we own the entire data pipeline, we can do data quality checks pretty much anywhere. We do at source, we do at pipeline. We don't do a lot of checks at rest, but like again, that we can do. But I think again, yes. So these are, I guess, like the three ways to enforce data quality. But it is a problem, right? It is like one of the top concerns our customers have, and I would say like nobody has really solved the problem. There are a bunch of tools,
Yeah.
even we haven't, right? I mean,
Yeah. I think for a fact where if you don't have data problems, you'll not have people. So you
yeah.
need to have data problems to have those resources to solve them. And that's how it kind of, obviously there are jobs for that. So, and
That's it.
do you, yeah, please go ahead.
Just to add to that, like that's a great point. In fact, right? I mean, it's not just data quality is a hard problem. There is no owner for data quality, right? Whose responsibility is data quality today? Like, I mean, the guy who is instrumenting the app, I mean, he's not responsible. He's just firing an event because his product manager told him to do so. He's not responsible for data quality. The pipeline guy is saying, I mean, I'm just ingesting data. I mean, like, if somebody's generated a bad event, what can I do? So there is no owner, there is no assigned budget for data quality. Hopefully, some of this will change over time. But yeah, that's also another problem. Like, problems without owners generally don't get fixed.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. I think someone has to take that ownership. I think more the people, more the ownerships around data quality, and that's how most of the companies are fixing data quality issues. But it's still a big problem, and the world knows about it. Also, Soumyadeb, when we talk about data quality, I think one important aspect that we've all been hearing a lot more about is about data observability, and there are many more companies around that as well. So, how do you take what's the connection for RudderStack with the data observability space as well? Can you tell us a little about that as well?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to the previous point around, like, you can do data quality at everywhere, right? I mean, you can do at the source, you can do at the pipeline, you can do at rest, right, after data lands. So
Right.
a lot of the observability vendors, right, they're focused on data at rest, and for right reasons, because like they don't control the data pipes, right? So they're working with customers who are ingesting data into a warehouse through maybe RudderStack, maybe some other ETL tool, maybe their homegrown tools, right? So when you have like multiple data pipes flowing in, I mean,
Hmm.
you cannot do quality checks on each one of the pipes unless you own the pipes, right? So you have to do it at the warehouse level. So that's how the approach your data observability vendors have taken, right? You analyze historic data, understand trends, and so on, and then generate alerts based on that. So I think like the problem is definitely valid. I mean, there are things you cannot do at the warehouse, and some things are very costly to do at the warehouse than at the source or at the pipe. But then, I mean, if I had to build a company, I would have to do it at the warehouse level only to make it like as wide as possible. So I'm excited about the space. It's just that I think, I mean, it's the I think I'll go back to my previous point, is that sometimes there is no owner for it, no budget for it. So like, you have to educate the market that this is what you need really. And so,
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's a very valid point that you said, that they needs to have a there needs to be an owner for something like this. When if there's someone, obviously things will get resolved at the earliest. So makes sense. Also, I know for a fact you've done a lot at RudderStack during the pandemic time. So in the wake of the pandemic and the face of an economic slowdown, why is customer data so important? I think that is like a question not only for me but also for our audience that who are on the call or joining us today. So what's your take on that, Samir?
yeah. I think like, I mean, recession or economic downturn, like, who knows how things will play out. But like, pandemic was definitely a big driver, right? Because of pandemic, a lot of the like, I mean, the e-commerce adoption almost moved 10 years in 2 months, right? I mean, if you look at all the curves around like adoption
Mhm.
about like apps and all home delivery and online ordering, right? So all that kind of really accelerated. And when that happens, like, tools like RudderStack really benefit from that, right? Because like, as you have more online, like, a lot of the traditional vendors also, right, Crate and Barrels, who had like physical stores, they become heavily digital. They invested on getting online use cases around data, right? So that pandemic was like definitely a big driver for customer data.
Hmm.
Recession actually can have the opposite effect, right? So in terms of pure, like, if you think from a consumer brand, right? I mean, if your usage goes down, your budgets are cut, then yeah, I mean, like, generally people are reluctant to invest in like technology, new things, and so on. I think the good thing for us at RudderStack is, and the reason I'm excited about our future is two things, right? Number one, CDP is not a new space, right? I mean, people have, like, it's not that we are trying to sell a new technology, right? People have investing and buying CDP solutions for the last like 5-7 years, maybe 10
Right.
years now. And the traditional CDPs don't work for various reasons. I don't want to get into the details, but so that is an opportunity for us to say that, okay, this is a new way of doing things. You can you replace your old school CDP architectures with a much more efficient solution. And the other thing is like not specific to RudderStack, but more broadly, is at economic downturn, you have to figure out newer ways to uh, like save money, drive revenue, right? So
Right.
when organic growth is not happening, so from on the save money part, right? Most consumer brands spend a ton of money on marketing, and there's this famous joke about marketing which says that, like, I mean, I 50% of my marketing budget is useless. I just don't know which 50%, right? So hopefully it should not be like that, right? You should have to know, like, I mean, you can do a lot more by collecting data, that like what is driving, what kind of marketing spend is driving conversion, what is not. So you need to like build that stack to be able to solve marketing attribution, right? So that's kind of one kind of problems which, by investing, you can reduce your total cost structure, right? At this other extreme, I'll give an example. If you're a subscription business, churn is a big driver of cost, right? I mean, if when people leave and so on. So if you can do something proactive about reducing churn, that can help your bottom line, right? And again, reducing churn is one of the top use cases of customer data. You can collect through RudderStack or not, collect the data, build these kind of predictive models for churn, and like proactively reach out. Like, so these kind of things you can again do to improve your revenue and so on. So yeah, I mean, like, downtown or not, I think you should be investing and collecting customer data. This is like, as a consumer brand, this is like super important. This is almost like oil for you, and yeah, you have to invest.
Yeah. No, totally 100%. I think now at least I'm getting the insights on the customer data and about its importance. And you made a very important point about churn being, playing a very impactful role in, at least even for the startups, but later down the line as well. Like we've seen companies like big companies like Netflix also, facing that issue. Recently I've read the news where obviously there have been, cut downs in the subscription. Like
Mhm.
people obviously are moving out from that model as well from LinkedIn, and they have seen, like, for the first time in their history, where there has been a cut in their subscription as well.
Yeah.
So it's so important to at that level as well, because I think everything kind of depends on customer data, and they have a, a very huge customer data, but still
Yeah.
they can face that. So you need to have those right. I think you've mentioned it very well. You need to have that right customer retention points as well. You need to have those boundaries with you where you can say that, okay, this is for you guys, and that's how you retain your customer back. So it makes a lot of sense, Soumyadeb.
100%.
Yeah, awesome. So we have a few questions. I'll definitely be taking Harpreet's question. But before that, I just have a connecting question, which is like, of all the things companies could do to mitigate slowdown, why should they, prioritize customer data projects? I always wanted to ask you about this. So what's your take
Yeah.
on that, Samir?
Yeah, it's kind of goes back to the previous point that, right? I mean, if you're a consumer brand, and there are like two things that are like, I mean, there are macro things you cannot control, right? If your like consumer demand is down because of like
Yeah,
recession and people not having money, then there's not much you can do, right? So there are only like then only two things you can do after that, right? You can either cut cost, and
yeah,
generally as a consumer brand, marketing is a big spend, right? And like I mean, digital marketing, brand marketing, so you can be a lot more efficient on that. And
yeah,
that requires to be smart about marketing spend. You have to collect customer data. You cannot just blindly, like, you need to know what is working, what Facebook ad is working, what is not, right? So that's kind of one bucket of problems. Like, use customer data to optimize your marketing spend. And the other thing, as I said, like, I mean, for your existing customers who are already paying you, improve their experience, right? Like, give them more relevant recommendations. If they're going to churn, give them promotions and so on, right? So I mean, all of this, like, you have to extract more from your loyal customer base, and the only way to do that is you have to really understand what they need, what they are doing today. And again,
right.
that requires customer data, right? So it's, I think, yeah, I mean, it's that's like, unless put it differently, this could be the only investment, right? I mean, RudderStack or not doesn't matter, but like, unless you're collecting customer data, how else would you drive revenue, like in a downturn? In fact, like on a economic boom, you don't have to optimize your customers, right? I mean, whether people will show up, people will buy, whether you are like giving them recommendations or not, whether
Mm.
you worry about churn or not. So it becomes even more important in a downturn, where you have to
Okay.
optimize these things.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's fair enough. A good valid point there, Swami. Thanks for that. Also, we have one question from Harpreet. Let's take this one. Could data analyst ask development team to update data schema for future data storage, or Is it like, is that a possibility by any chance?
Yeah, so I, I didn't understand the question fully. So generally, in I think from what I understood, the high level is uh, like develop in our case at least, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
team which is responsible for generating the data, right? So somebody like the mobile app developer, the iOS developer, who is developing, who is generating the events, right? This is a purchase event. These are the 5 fields in the event. There is somebody developing, generating the event, and somebody, it goes through our stack and then it gets saved in the data warehouse in a particular schema, right? We'll create columns for those fields in the event. So, and those things are further driving like dashboards, and data analysts are querying, right? So there is this dependency between these two teams, like the generator and the consumer of the data. So uh, I think the best practice there is to have like some kind of a tracking plan that both of them work towards, right? I mean, they agree that these are the schema of the events, and the development team kind of conforms to that. They use SDKs which kind of help conform to uh, those tracking plans. Similarly, the data analysis team can again enforce those tracking plans at data warehouse, write scripts to verify. So some things we can do. There are other tools which kind of do that, like Avo and so on the source side, and then there are data observability tools who can do it on the data side. So I guess like that's kind of the approach I take to
Yeah.
enforce schema across the pipeline.
No, I totally hear you there, Soumyadeb. So thanks for that. Also, we have a question here from Manisha, and I think this was one of my questions as well, which I wanted to ask. What do you think about modern data stack? Obviously, we all have seen so many versions out there, but would love to hear from you. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably get in trouble both internally and outside of RudderStack for saying this, but I think like this is one of the terms invented by vendors for uh, by like, I mean, you have to latch onto something. So like I mean, we also do that. We talk about modern data stack and so on, but I think it's still more of like a like vendor terminology as opposed to like how customers think about it. I think from a pure customer perspective, like the change has been the cloud data warehouses. It's not that people did not have data warehouses, right? I mean, there were Teradatas and Exadatas, and there are like 10 other vendors who are like selling these huge data warehouses. You just had to buy them on prem. They were very costly, and that thing has moved to the cloud. So now it's easy to do that, much efficient. And so that means you can build some more interesting use cases than you can do on top of the warehouse. And then the vendor ecosystem has also changed, right? I mean, there was Informatica, which used to collect data, run those pipelines into your traditional data warehouse. If you're on the cloud, now you have like Fivetran and RudderStack and other vendors like that, which can bring the data into the warehouse. So I think like the architecture is nothing new. Like, maybe you should call it modern data warehouse and then things around that. So
Okay, yeah, I think fair enough. Definitely, we've been hearing so much with the Snowflake Summit.
yeah,
There has been so much around the modern data stack. I've even read, you know, founders in, vendors even saying that it's not modern anymore. It was a term which was like 10 years back, brought into the play,
yeah.
and it's the traditional thing itself. But yeah, we all use it. It's maybe, we are kind of neutral there. It's used by many
So
vendors as well. So yeah.
I mean, it makes sense though, right? I mean, like even if I think about data stack, right? We are saying that we are the CDP for the modern data stack, right? I mean, okay, that's like the other. We can also position ourselves as a CDP for a cloud data warehouse, right? So these are
Hmm.
like vendor things you can like latch onto. Like, I mean, if everybody's talking about modern data stack, you want to talk about modern data stack, right? But
Yeah.
from a pure customer perspective, right? I mean, there are specific business problems you are trying to solve, right? And modern data stack or not, I mean, you
Hmm.
have to buy a cloud data warehouse. Nobody is buying these on-prem data warehouses anymore, and that's why Snowflake is exploding. And then once you do that, then you'll have to build tooling around cloud data warehouse. So that's what is, I guess, is modern data stack. But
No,
I don't think
yeah.
there's any fundamental thing that's completely changed. Right? How the architecture just moved from on-prem to cloud, right? That's what is happening, and then the tooling around it is changing. So
Exactly, and I think you made a very valid point where it's more on the lines where all all the vendors out there would want to see where they fit in, and that's how they call themselves. That okay, this is where we fit in the modern data stack or the data warehouse. So makes a lot of sense. Also, I have a question around more around the data engineering, and I'll obviously connect it with the modern data stack tools as well. So if if you say if the tools of the modern data stack make data engineering easier and unlock new use cases, why do so many companies still struggle to build mature data functions? What's your take on that, somewhere there?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And again, I have never like that, like companies at different scale, right? I mean, like there is like the Netflixes of the world. They have the best data engineers and the best data
Right.
scientists, right? So at that scale, it is engineering problem, right? I mean, the volume of data you are collecting, uh, and like, yeah, the real time requirements and so on, right? So there are hard engineering problems, and we can go in depth on that, but like that's kind of an engineering aspect of this. The other aspect of this is a more of like a skill set aspect. If you go to like mainstream companies, right, forget
Mm-hmm.
about like the Bay Area, Silicon Valley companies, like traditional banks, traditional uh, retail companies who are coming online for the first time. There it's more of like a like the skill set problem, right? We don't have enough data engineers and data scientists to be building these pipelines and building use cases on top of that, right? So that's more of that skill set gap you have, and maybe there are things we can do to solve that, right? So like, there are almost two spectrum of problems.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Also for our audience, I know we are still here to talk about data maturity journey. So, and I want to learn a lot from you, Soumyadeb. But just for our audience, a quick reminder that RudderStack has been kind enough to offer the swag of RudderStack. What you guys need to do is type in hashtag RudderStack in the chat, and towards the end of the show I'll be doing a cool raffle, and you will actually have a chance to win RudderStack Swag Package Star Wars themed, which says "Luke, I'm your data" t-shirt and stickers. So don't hesitate to type in hashtag RudderStack in the chat, and towards the end of the show definitely we are doing a good raffle. So Soumya, I know for a fact we've obviously talking spoke about data engineering, about data economic slowdown, about customer data, about data quality, about modern data stack. You've given us great insights about startups as well. So that also brings me to another stage of topic that is more around data maturity, and we hear a lot about it, about the data maturity journey, but would love to hear from you, like what is the data maturity journey?
Yeah. So like at a very high level, it's more of a like an organization evolution, right?
Yeah.
As your as you grow from like a 2% startup trying to like bootstrap an idea to like you go and like become like a 1,000% company, right? How your data stack evolves, that's what is the data maturity, right? So more specifically, like when you are, let's say, like a less than 10% startup, you just launched a consumer app, then uh, then the entire focus is to like around customer data. Again, I don't want to make it generalize it, but like is around
Yeah.
collecting data from the apps to do analysis, right? You want to understand where people are coming from, where are they dropping off, like what actions they are taking in the app, and so on, right? So that's kind of like just it's more about like user funnel. You want to understand and optimize that funnel so that you have retention and so on, right? So that's, and then your data stack pretty much looks like you will use like at one end some kind of a analytics tool like Mixpanel or Amplitude, or and you'll use something like RudderStack Segment to do the data pipelining, right? So that's your very less than 10% startup journey. Then once you grow to like a 10-50% company and you hire your first data analyst, right? Initially it was just like product manager or even the founder doing those user journey analysis, right? Now you
Mhm.
have a data team, you hire like a couple of data analysts writing SQL. They want to do more complex analysis, they want to understand marketing spends, they want to look at other sources like ticket data and buyer behavior and so on, right? So there you
Right.
typically want to bring everything to a data warehouse like Snowflake, and then build out more of these advanced reports on Looker, Tableau, or one of the BI tools, right? Things that you cannot do in a tool like Amplitude. So that's kind of like the second stage where you bring on a data warehouse, get all the data, and build out more advanced dashboards. then when you grow beyond that, right? I mean, you go from 50 people to like now you're a 200 persons company. You hired your first data scientist, and you are
Right.
building out some of these ML use cases, whether they are product recommendations, whether it's like emailing. Churn was another example I talked about. Right, when you build those ML use cases, that's when it's not just about getting the data into the warehouse, but also about building these models and then activating the output of these models, right? So the model predicted that I should be sending you this coupon, then that data has to be sent to some emailing tool, and then the emailing tool will send out the coupon, right? So your pipeline now looks like get the data into the warehouse, do this ML stuff, and then send the data out of the warehouse to some SaaS tool to run the campaigns. So that's kind of like the third stage. And then finally you want to do real-time recommendations, right? I mean, if you are like maybe not like Netflix scale, but like a lot earlier, but then you want to give the Netflix or Amazon experience where somebody logs in and then he just sees like relevant things based on their past behavior, based on the other user data, right? So that requires a slight lot more mature stack, right, around how to build those recommendations, how to deliver those recommendations. So that's kind of like the final stage. So I mean, like that's kind of one way to like bucketize. Of course, there are like gray areas in between, but that's how that's what we call the data maturity.
Yeah, I think this is you've given me the a good picture of how what data maturity journey looks like, and very well explained. Thanks for that, Soumyadeb. I know for a fact where growth stack also kind of plays a very important role, and it can be a game changer for a lot of companies. But what kind of issues does this solve for a data team? That's what I was wondering. Do you have any thoughts around that?
So generally, so data teams are almost like enablers in the business, right? I mean,
True.
like the finally users of the data are typically product managers or marketing or somebody else, right, in the team. So data teams are enablers. So I don't know like what data maturity journey solves for the data team. It's almost like you should structure your data team based on the stage of your like company, right? I mean, if you're very early 10% company and you're just doing product analytics in Mixpanel or Amplitude, you don't need a data team, right? Versus
Hmm.
if you're like now in like building an ML stack and you want to collect data, build ML models and so on, then you need like a team which can first collect the data, or use tools like us. Then you need a team who can build those ML models. Then you need an ML ops team which can put those models in production. So I would say like, yeah, it's data almost the other way to say is like data maturity does not, like the journey doesn't solve the data team's problem. It's almost the other way. Your data team should be structured as per the journey.
Okay, this is pretty interesting. Also, for a fact, where when we talk about growth stack, there was another question that I had was what can a team do once they implement the growth stack? Uh, that was impossible before. Like you say, this is the reason why growth stack actually plays as a game changer for teams. Do you have any like example or maybe any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I'm thinking like I'll go back to like two things, right? Well, again, two things
Right?
has happened. Like one is like again, data warehouses have exploded. So
Yeah.
like because of that, like a lot of the analysis is possible now, which was not possible like 7, 8, 10 years ago. And secondly, like, I think like the tooling around this has also improved, right? I mean, you have product analytics tools which are like doing well. I mean, you have like BI stack has improved a lot. Your expertise around people knowing SQL, people knowing those analysis has also improved. So I don't know if that answers your question. It's almost like slightly tangential, but yeah.
I think definitely those are like the external factors that you're talking about, which kind of plays a very important role in the growth stack, and also the teams where and how it has been a game changer. So definitely, it does answer my questions. Thanks for that, Soumya. Also, uh, I know for a fact RudderStack does a lot for the new learners as well. So, does RudderStack also have resources or that can help the data community to learn more about the things that today we have spoken about the data maturity model, or about the data maturity journey, or about data engineering, about customer retention? Do
So
do
we
we have, yeah,
So we
resources?
have written some blogs. We are writing some. We are creating some video content. But I think it is not just a RudderStack thing. I mean, I'd rather want to like partner with other people in the space to like create
Wow.
content around this, right? So like depending on each stage of your journey, right? I mean, when you are early, then these are the kind of use cases you should be building, right? I mean, and then like vendors like Amplitude has very good content around what kind of you should be doing around product analytics, right? So similarly, Mixpanel, I'm sure, also has good content and so on. So I think like then like when you go further down and you're trying to do data analysis on a warehouse, then Snowflake has very good content around that, and the other cloud vendors, like warehouse vendors, right? So it's all about, I think, as a community, we need to we as RudderStack, of course, have a vested interest in like investing in creating content, and we are doing that. I mean, each stage of the journey, these are the kind of use cases you should be building and thinking about. But then I think like there's a lot of other good content across the vendors. We just have to like there's probably an opportunity to like collate everything, and maybe we should do that. So
Yeah, definitely. I think I know for a fact that you guys even have a podcast, and it's so insightful to always hear the Stack podcast. And Brooks, Allison, everyone out there are doing so much at RudderStack. So great work, great resources that you put, and you made a very important point. It's not only just about the RudderStack, but other vendors as well. They are coming up with such amazing resources for the community, and as I always say, growing together is the motto. So
yeah.
I think you what you said is something which is very much aligned there. So thanks for that, Soumyadev. And what I've also done for our audience is, I know there's a very amazing practical guide that you guys have come up with around the modern data stack and the data maturity journey, and I've also shared that in the chat for the folks who want to actually go and download it for free. So go, feel free to check that out. But it's big time for us where we are now gonna do the raffle. So this is what I was actually talking about, Soumyadev, when we were talking before. So it's a cool raffle. It actually picks up all the hashtags that we've had, and
Mhm.
then this is how we draw the winner. All the best to everyone who participated, and it automatically picks up a winner. Let's see who the winner is. It is Manisha Jain.
Congrats,
Congratulations.
Manisha.
Yeah, I know Manisha very well. She's been a very close content creator as well. So thanks, Manisha, for joining us and asking questions, and everyone in the audience as well. Thanks for joining us. But Soumyadev, before you leave, I have a question for you. I am sure audience might have that for you as well. If folks want to learn more about RudderStack, about data engineering, about the data maturity journey, where can they reach out to you? What's like the best place?
Yeah, I mean, like my email is my first name Soumyadeb at rudderstack.com or gmail.com. That's the good thing about having a name which is hard, that like you get all your first name emails. So yeah, I mean
Uh,
that's the best way to reach me. Just email me,
yeah,
and or like connect me on LinkedIn. Would love to like get feedback and on the data maturity journey, use cases around that. Anyone willing to partner with us to create content, I'm like would be super excited to partner.
yeah, definitely. I think this is amazing, and I know for a fact I can vouch on that Somadev is very much approachable. He loves to hear feedbacks. He loves to hear what the community is thinking, and he loves to collaborate. So don't hesitate. Reach out to Somadev on LinkedIn, email, and learn, get those golden nuggets. Thanks again, Soumyadev, for visiting the Ravit Show. It was such a pleasure to host you today, and thanks for sharing all those amazing insights.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a great pleasure chatting with you and the rest
Okay.
of the
Thank you, everyone, for joining.